Guys, I'm taking a few minutes out, and this is going to be kind of tight because I got to get up out of here. But I believe that I had to do this one before I left. Can somebody please tell me what the hell is going on with the NAACP? I say that because the NAACP, for reasons that I can't understand and they won't elaborate on, they are against charter schools. Now, I understand that the NAACP apparently must be getting big financial contributions from various teachers unions across the country, and especially in New York. But still, for them to come out and vote against the expansion of the number of charter schools just goes against everything that they supposedly stand for. Now, I say that because I believe, and I don't know, and you can correct me if I am wrong, but charter schools are not totally private. I believe that they are quote unquote semi-public. Okay. I also believe that charter schools do not use law enforcement within the schools. Anytime that they have what we would call a compliance officer, that is not a law enforcement officer. He has no powers of law enforcement. They, when necessary, would have to call for outside law enforcement. Okay? In my mind, a person that is not in law enforcement would, I believe, be a bit more even-handed. Again, that depends on the person. Now, I say that because stories have been done. I did one of them on a kid who was entitled to a free lunch, got his lunch but forgot to get his milk, went back to get his milk, and this black kid is being charged with larceny. And I mean, this thing has gone way overboard. And the reason it's gone way overboard is because a law enforcement officer, a cop, decided that he was going to arrest this kid for larceny. Okay? How can it be larceny when you get something that you're entitled to? That's bullshit. Now, there was another case, and I forget the name of the kid. Oh, on the first one, if you go to the Advise show, Phil just did a, I'm sorry, the host, and I forgot his name. I've been under, a lot of, let's call it stress, so I'm forgetting names now. I have to get a little rest so I can get back in the swing of things. But anyway, I believe it's Phil did a story on how far out of balance this story has gone, to the point that the child now has to appear in juvenile court over a 65-cent milk container that he was entitled to. All because a law enforcement officer was in the school and decided to go overboard. Now, there's another case, and again, this is a kid who had pretty much a great record in school, happened to come across a counterfeit $20 bill. The kid doesn't know the bill's counterfeit. He takes the bill in to pay for his lunch. They mark the bill comes up counterfeit, and now they want to, well, they did, arrest the kid and charge him with attempting to, pass a counterfeit bill. That's, in my mind, ridiculous. And it wasn't just the attempt to pass. They charged him with all kinds of crap. Like, this kid was some mastermind of some counterfeiting ring. Again, because a law enforcement officer happened to be in the school. I can tell you for a fact, I got a counterfeit bill one time, and I went into my bank to make a deposit, and the banker, they didn't call the police. They just basically told me that I had a counterfeit bill there, and that they had to confiscate the damn bill. So, I lost $20, but that was it. There is no reason for police officers to be in these schools, acting like a judge, jury, and basically, executioner, putting these black kids into the system. And that is their goal, to get as many black kids into the system as possible. All right, here's the story from Roland Martin.
Raised NAACP Board of Directors voted this weekend to ratify a resolution calling for a freeze on the expansion of charter schools. The board cited the school's lack of transparency and accountability and hard disciplinary practices as some of the reasons for the decision. Charter school supporters in Cincinnati, Ohio, came from all over the country. In Memphis, protested outside the hotel where the NAACP was meeting because also the NAACP refused to meet with many of those parents. They say the public school system is failing students, and charter schools are the only viable alternative. NAACP believes federal dollars used to fund charter schools could be better spent on making traditional public schools better. In a statement, the NAACP said this: while we have reservations about charter schools, we recognize that many children attend traditional public schools that are inadequately and inequitably equipped to prepare them for the innovative and competitive environment they will face as adults. Underfunded and under-supported, these traditional public schools have much work to do to transform curriculum, prepare teachers, and give students the resources they need.
Now, see, that statement sucked, because what they are telling these black parents to do is wait while we, quote unquote, try to find the money, and while we try to properly use the money in order to educate your kids. Hell no. Why do we have to wait? If there are charter schools out there that are, quote unquote, properly funded, properly supported, and have the curriculums and the teachers that have the ability to give their kids the education that they need right now, why the hell should they have to wait? The public schools need to get their goddamn acts together, okay? Do what they need to do in order to prepare for the next group of kids to come in. But the kids that are in these schools right now need to be properly educated right now. So that statement by the NAACP, in my mind, doesn't hold water.
Now, of course, there are about 7,000 charter schools in the U.S., servicing about 6% of public schools, some 3 million students, a lot of them minorities. National Alliance for Public Schools called the NAACP move misguided. In fact, we did reach out to the NAACP to get President and CEO Cornell Brooks on the show to discuss this. He did not return our phone calls, text messages, or emails.
All right, now this guy's a goddamn coward, because any other time, this guy would have been more than happy to come on Roland Martin's show if it was something that he was promoting, that there was major support by the black community. But now, because he's on the wrong side of this, his ass is missing in action.
We also tried to reach Hillary Shelton, of course, who is the VP as well, and they was unable to get him. Joining us via FaceTime from Harlem, New York, Dr. Steve Perry, of course, who runs a charter school there, as well as one in Connecticut. So, Steve, NAACP makes this decision. I was looking at a lot of the tweets over the weekend. Somebody who, of course, big-time school choice supporter like you, and parents were angry that NAACP wouldn't even meet with them.
I'm not surprised, unfortunately, that the NAACP would not even consider meeting with the parents, because they're stalwart in their position, regardless of the fact that it's based upon specious information and cherry-picked data. Sadly, the national chapter of the NAACP is so significantly detached from what's happening at the local level. Our school in Connecticut has been opened in large part because the president of the NAACP in Connecticut was a staunch supporter of school choice, understanding that it's not just about charters, but it's about school choice. When the overwhelming majority of black children are forced into failed schools, why on earth would you support a system that has never served black people? Established in 1635, a time in which African Americans were enslaved, why would you expect that that same system with this current DNA would produce anything other than that which it has produced, which is a undereducated African American population that's clawing its way up through the social and economic ranks? It's absurd, and let's be honest. We all know that the NAACP national headquarters has received a significant amount of money from the teachers union. The only other organization to call for a moratorium on charter schools, in particular because they are non-union, are the teachers unions. So this is a teachers union statement that they have implanted in the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People national headquarters.
Steve, the fact that, first of all, we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago that's going to air on TV One, and this time slot on Friday. It's a two-part conversation. Discussion is school choice the black choice, so that'll be on Friday. Plus, we'll air part 2 on next Friday, October 28th. I mean, this is a issue for a lot of black parents. We did a poll here last year. TV One, more than 70% of black parents said that they would put their kids in charters. More than 70% said they even support vouchers. It seems as if black parents are far ahead of where the NAACP is, and the NAACP seems to be opposing what black parents say they want.
Well, because they're supporting the suburban, largely white teachers union. I mean, it really is that simple. It's not about data. They talk about wanting more transparency. I ran a school in a traditional public school system for 10 years, and I now run 2 charter schools. And I can tell you that there's greater transparency as a charter operator because, one, we have a 5-year contract. We have to go through an application process that has to be approved in Connecticut by both houses of the state legislature. And then we could be closed at any time. That's not the case when I ran a traditional school. The traditional school received significantly more money. So when they have this conversation about resources, we receive $15,000 per pupil in a $42.5 million building, as opposed to the $11,000 that we receive and no building. And the list goes on and on. They talk about how they want to make sure that the discipline practices are equal. The fact is that the 90% of all African American children do attend a traditional public school. So when you're talking about 40% of the expulsions being African Americans, that's in the traditional schools. That's not among the just 700,000 that are going to charter schools. And finally, when we look at the fact that this is not about data, we have to ask the simple question, then why on earth would they make a decision that runs in the face of the very community that they're supposed to serve? It's because, unfortunately, the national headquarters of the NAACP has lost its rudder, and it is drifting in a direction that runs counter to the very reason why we even have magnet schools and charter schools. It's because in 1954, the NAACP understood that when you assign children to school by zip code, it is proxy to race, and as a result of which, you can keep black and poor kids in failing schools through perpetuity. So they're not even holding on to the very mission that they've become known for.
Steve Perry, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
I want to go to our panel here. What's interesting about this is that President...
All right, so, Steve Perry basically summed it up much more eloquently than I could. The NAACP is in the pocket of the teachers union. That's basically the bottom line. And we need to do something about this. Now, obviously the NAACP has no executive power, but between them, the teachers union, they do wield influence in a lot of the areas that the schools come into. So the legislatures and the executive branch are going to have to basically ignore what the NAACP is attempting to do and what the teachers unions are attempting to do, and properly service the communities, and in particular the black communities, to allow these charter schools to expand. Obviously monitor them closely to make sure that they're doing the job that they're purported to do, and if resources need to go to them, then those resources need to go to them. And if they're doing a great job, then they need to give them even greater resources. Just my opinion on this one.